I remember you speaking very distinctly on this, that for instance, when two men are communicating with each other, there is an underlying threat of force that kind of puts on the guardrails those particular social interactions. For instance,
Yeah, the threat of force is don't be psychopathic.
What is how broader is psychopathic here? Are we defining?
Well, I can define it. I mean,
sure, yeah, go for it.
Well, a psychopath will gain short-term advantage at the cost of long-term relationship.
Okay,
that's really the core issue. Well, you know, you made a reference to something like that earlier in your discussion when you pointed out that people claim to be motivated, let's say, by principle, but will default to short-term gratification more or less at the drop of a hat. Yeah, exactly. Well, the exaggerated proclivity to do that is at the essence of psychopathy. So it's very immature.
I'm curious with this definition of psychopathy.
It's the definition of psychopathy. It's not it's not mine. That's the core of psychopathy.
Okay, I'm not in the United States. I think we call it all ASPD now.
So one thing I've learned over time watching Jordan Peterson, you have to be listening very attentively to everything he says and then take it in before you even respond. But it seems to me like Destiny, everything Jordan Peterson says, Destiny is trying to fight back with something. It's like he's hearing Jordan Peterson, but he's not listening. He asks Jordan Peterson a question and he doesn't pause to think and then respond. When Jordan Peterson says something Destiny doesn't agree with, he's quick to respond. It's like he wants to show him that I'm as smart as you are. But Jordan Peterson, in my opinion, is way smarter. He's written books. He's a professor. He's a professor, I think, clinical psychology, right? And he has way more experience. He has talked to way more people. He has held. He actually does seminars where he meets people and talks to people. So for me, his experience is way bigger than Destiny. But it seems like every time Destiny asks him something, a question, and then Jordan Peterson responds, Destiny is quick to respond. If I was talking to someone like Jordan Peterson and how smart he is, I would literally have to listen and take like maybe 10 seconds to let it sink in exactly what he's saying. But just watch this interaction. Everything Jordan Peterson says, Destiny is trying to fight back right away. And by no means is Destiny not a smart guy. I've watched some of his panels or having debates with people. He's smart, but I feel like he's trying to he has always, maybe he thinks he's as smart as Jordan Peterson, or he wants to impress him, or he wants to impress whoever is going to be watching this interview. That's the way I'm seeing it. But let's watch some more and see what happens.
Now,
no, it's separate from, that's antisocial personality disorder.
I thought that subsumed psychopathy and sociopathy.
Psychopathy is more like it's more the pathological core of antisocial personality disorder.
Okay, maybe that might be true. Okay,
that's a better way of thinking. Like the worst. A small number of criminals are responsible for the vast majority of crimes. It's 1% commit 65%, something like that.
Do you think, is psychopathy something that can be environmentally induced, or do you think this is core to a person?
It's both. Okay. So, for example, if you're disagreeable, like you are, by the way, your proclivity.
Yeah, yeah, Destiny is very disagreeable. Now, I don't know if that means somebody's smart, because these are the two, watching Destiny over time. Two things I've learned. I've watched him and I've picked up on him from him, right? Picked up on him, not from him, on him. He's very disagreeable. I agree with Jordan Peterson, but also he talks fast. So I guess to some people that could come off as being smart, but I think Jordan Peterson is having a good read on him. So.
If you went wrong would be to go wrong in an antisocial and psychopathic direction. That's more true of men, for example, than it is for women. That's why men are more likely to be in prison by a lot. I think it's 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 generally. It depends on the particular crime, with it being higher proportion of men as the violence of the crime mounts. So you can imagine on the genetic versus environment side. So imagine that when you're delivered your temperamental hand of cards, you're going to have a certain set of advantages that go along with them that are part and parcel of that genetic determination. And there's going to be a certain set of temptations as well. So, for example, if you're high in trait neuroticism, you're going to be quite sensitive to the suffering of others and be able to detect that. That's useful for infant care. But the cost you'll pay is that you'll be more likely to develop depression and anxiety. And if you're disagreeable, extroverted, and unconscientious, then the place you'll go if you go badly is in the psychopathic or antisocial direction. And there are environmental determinants of that to some degree.
Sure. Genes express themselves in an environment. I agree. When I'm just curious for the definition of psychopathy, for short-term gain at the expense of long-term
relationship, really. That's probably the best bit. Yeah.
When you look at stuff like people that are self-destructive, say people that engage in behavioralists like obesity, is that like a type of psychopathy to you, or is that like something different, or how do you define these types of things, I guess, or how do you view that type of thing?
Well, no, there is an overlap in that addictive processes, one of which might lead to obesity, do have this problem of prioritization of the short term. But so that overlaps with the short-term orientation of the psychopath. But a psychopath is, an obese person isn't gaining anything from your demise to facilitate their obesity, right? So there's a predatory and parasitical element to psychopathy that's not there in other addictive short-term processes.
Do you think, is it possible that there are things, because then to circle back to the
Man, I wish maybe I had a few teachers when I was growing up, but I wish I had teachers. If every teacher spoke and explained things the way Jordan Peterson does, I'm gonna say, most kids would understand exactly what's going on in class, because the way he explains his points, if I was listening to him, man, I need to have a chance and go attend to one of his seminars. One of them was going to be here in Boston, but I didn't get the chance to go. But man, the way he explains every point, like I could listen to Jordan Peterson all day. The way he explains his points, the way he breaks down like complicated subjects and then puts them in these different subsets and keeps breaking them down for you to understand, is just nothing short of a genius. But looks like destiny for that amount of time a lady play. For the first time, he didn't really interrupt him or try to engage him or try to bring something back. And that's good. So I'll give him his credit for that.
tribal example I gave, isn't it possible that people can commit harms against other people where they're not necessarily gaining from their demise, but it's just some other sort of gain that they're doing better? So for instance, like say like I'm talking to some person, I'm just gossiping or shit talking another person. I'm not necessarily feeling good that I'm trashing them per se. I'm feeling good because this group of friends might view me more favorably because I have like a gossip or something to share with them.
Well, but that's the gain right there. And you are contributing to the demise of the people you're gossiping about.
But I think there's like, I feel like there's fundamentally different type of thought process between like, I want to tell you something juicy about this guy because it'll make you like me, versus I want to tell you something juicy about this guy because I hate this guy and I want him to like have a worse reputation among people. I feel like there's different drivers for that.
I would say that's an interesting distinction. I would say probably that the hatred induced malevolence is a worse form of malevolence than the popularity-inducing malevolence.
Yeah, the only reason
it's a tough one, but
yeah, the only reason I bring that up is because I feel like a lot of malevolence that we have social guardrails for is that type of like selfish malevolence where you're not. I would argue even the majority of malevolence in the world is usually people acting selfishly or being inconsiderate, not necessarily like I hate this.
Yeah,
person,
I think that's right. Sure. I think that that's why Dante outlined levels of hell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, exactly that. And I mean, that book was an investigation into the structure of malevolence, right? He put betrayal at the bottom, which I think is right. I think that's right, because people who develop post-traumatic stress disorder, for example, which almost only accompanies an encounter with malevolence rather than tragic circumstances, they are often betrayed, sometimes by other people, but often by themselves. And yes, there are levels of hell, and you outlined a couple there.
So I guess then my question is just that if you have people, so the kid that steals an orange from a stand, not because he hates the shop owner, but because he wants the orange or he's hungry, without some type of societal, it doesn't have to be the government, it could be family, religious, without some type of use of force, do you think that society ever exists without
use force on your wife?
well, what are we considering force? Is withholding sex, for instance, is that considered force? Or is, saying we're going to cancel a
deprivation
vacation?
of an expected reward is a punishment.
Wow. Wow, that's it. So he said deprivation of an expectation is a punishment. Now let's break that down. So for example, if you have a child, the child expects you to feed them, right? And if you don't feed them, it's gonna come off of it. It will come off to the child like you don't like them, right? It will come off to the child like it's a punishment, even if they did nothing wrong. But then it begs the question: is there such thing as too much expectation? So if you put these high expectations on somebody, and then they don't reward the expectations, is that a punishment? So like, where's the line? What is too much expectation and what is not, right? Sure, somebody's if a man has a wife, sure he expects sex from her, and I'm sure she does the same. But how much is too much sex? Where if she says, "I cannot do it now or today," is that now a punishment, right? So those are so many questions, and I'm glad they had this conversation, because with all the questions Destiny asks, all the pushback, I like when somebody does that to Jordan Peterson, because then it puts Jordan Peterson in his bag. He really brings out his geniusness and the way he answers questions, and he brings that experience, or the books he has read, the books he has written, the way he answers those questions when somebody pushes back on him or keeps asking him high level questions. It makes him come out and just wants me to listen to him all day. So this was a good conversation. I'm not going to complete the video. I'll put the full link to the video down below if you want to complete it. Till next time, peace.